best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
Sarah, what will we be reviewing today?
Star Trek 6.
Star Trek 6. Now, for those of you that did not see our motion picture review, let me throw this out there real quick. Sarah and I reviewed motion picture a while back, and several people asked us to please hurry up and review Star Trek 6. When we did motion picture first, which I don't think was on purpose, that we were going to like review them in order or anything. We just, somebody requested motion picture, so we watched motion picture. And then it came up in that review that you don't like Star Trek 6.
Yep.
And then a number of people were like, we have to know why. So we decided to go ahead and review Star Trek 6.
Yeah, which meant that I had to watch it again, but it was okay.
So, Sarah, where do you want to start?
How about the reason why I don't like Star Trek 6?
Just start right there.
Just start right there.
All right.
Answer everybody's question. I don't like Star Trek 6 because the concept is awesome. And okay, let me explain this.
That's a terrible problem.
Yes. The problem is that it had the kind of plot that I wanted to see in more Star Trek films. It had intrigue, it had big stuff happening, tons of continuity, impacting stuff, Kittimer, and I mean, just, it was awesome. The problem was, it was a mediocre film. How can you have such an awesome concept and have it executed so, not really even poorly? I mean, if it were a bad film, I wouldn't dislike it as much. But it's because...
But you think it got close and then it fell
got
back.
so close, and then I spent half the film rolling my eyes at it.
Okay, is it because of all the mistakes they made with Klingon lore, or what is it that made it so mediocre?
I think it's a combination of all sorts of things. They didn't just screw up in one spot. Okay, you have the little nitpicky things about the Klingons. Overall, I love the Klingons in this. They're the best they've been done in the movies so far.
If nothing else, some of the best casting choices.
Yes, but then you have the nitpicky things like the Klingon blood or the Klingon tear ducts, and TNG had been going on for a while. We knew what this stuff was.
Yeah, even though this happens chronologically before TNG, we'd already had 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, I don't think Klingons changed their blood color between the
in 80,
100 years,
yeah.
Or the fact that they had tear ducts, or, but little stuff. Okay, and then you have dialogue issues. I just cringe every time Shakespeare is quoted, because the problem is, okay, Wrath of Khan, the quoting was okay. It was subtle. It was stuff not everybody necessarily knew came from something else.
Yeah.
And they were really good, the lines, and they were delivered excellently.
And they more clearly went with the themes of that movie.
Yeah, it was a revenge thing.
I would say that's not to say that the stuff that Chang says here doesn't have anything to do with what's going on, but a lot of it does feel pretty throwaway.
Why Shakespeare? And Shakespeare is a Klingon?
Why does it? Well, I mean, we'll get into a couple of those things. But you're jumping around kind of everywhere.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Sarah's very frustrated right now.
I am.
She's just. Well, let me ask you this, but before we go any further, because I like to review movies based on the last time I watched them. Of course, I never review a movie without watching it again. But what I mean is, I usually try to look at this viewing as opposed to the viewings I've had in the past and based on that. So my question to you is, was this a better or worse experience than you've had in time past? Because it's been a while since you've seen it.
Honestly, it actually was worse.
It was worse?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because...
It was for me too, but I think that was because I was watching it with you.
You were watching it with me, and I was pointing out everything.
We were also watching it with a couple friends of ours who pointed out some stuff that I hadn't noticed before also, which didn't help my viewing experience. Yeah,
but I think the last time I had watched it, I was still, I'd been into Star Trek for a few years.
You were still newer
but I was still
now.
newer, and now I've seen more of it more often, and I've thought about it more, and I also went into it knowing I'm not a big fan of this film, and I was looking for a reason, because before this viewing, I really didn't exactly have a reason. I kind of had this, amorphous kind of feeling of why I didn't like it.
You didn't quite dig this movie.
Yeah, but then I knew I was going to be making this video, so I needed to put words to it.
All right, well, let me put out there real quick what I think is the reason that this movie is very often held in such high esteem by fans, and I'm not going to disagree with them. And let me also say that for the most part, I actually like this movie. Though again, there were things that I noticed this time that I hadn't before. This is in the same category as Wrath of Khan and First Contact in that it directly impacts canon or has something major to do with canon. Regardless of how well it's executed, we have to at least agree that this is a really good idea for to put on screen.
Exactly. Yes.
And you mentioned that. You know, we know in TNG that the Klingons are now allies. How did that happen? This is story-worthy. That's story-worthy. It's not one of those prequel kind of things where we don't care how it happened. We want to know. I mean, we were enemies with them forever, and now suddenly we're not. What was that about?
Yeah.
For TNG fans, the fact that it's Kittimer is a big deal. And, you know, stuff like that because of Worf's history and all that, which we won't get into. So, you know, you've got Wrath of Khan, which was a direct sequel to a single episode. So that's directly tied into canon. And then you've got First Contact, which tells us what aliens were humans' first contact. That's huge. This is bigger than both of those for canon.
Yes.
In that it gives us this big, giant historical moment. And I would agree that in a few major places it falls flat. I'm also not bugged as hard by the differences with the Klingons, except just that it feels a little lazy. There's stuff where it doesn't seem like it was necessary. The blood I get, they wanted a PG-13, but they still wanted blood. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It looks like Pepto-Bismol, so it's silly,
I understand, but I think you hit it on the head. The writing just feels lazy to me the whole way through. If you think about everything else in that movie, the scenes, you know, the visuals, the score was magnificent, the concept, they're all really good. They're really high caliber. But when it comes to the way it was written and the way it was handled, there are certain aspects of it that...
We'll get a little more detail.
Okay, Valeris.
Oh, let's
How
talk
about Valeris? A character that really went nowhere, and you mentioned that she was supposed to be Savik originally.
Yeah, originally that was supposed to be Savik, as far as I know, and honestly, it's painfully obvious that was supposed to be Savik. You've got this character who pops in out of nowhere, who Spock is deeply enamored with, not a love relationship, but just like I want you to replace me, and she does nothing throughout the movie that tells me, the viewer, that she's worthy of replacing Spock, which immediately makes her a candidate for probably the person who betrayed everybody, because we find out that she was the linchpin in the operation to get Kirk kidnapped by the Klingons, and to get him on trial with the Klingons, and to mess up the peace treaty on Kittimer. And had that been Savik, it would have been much more biting. It would have been a much bigger deal, because this was a character that we'd seen in 2.5 movies. She was at the beginning of 4 also. We got her at the beginning of, we got her into, which was Nicholas Meyer's other movie, which of course everybody says, most people say is the best Star Trek movie ever, and a lot of people think it's one of the best science fiction films made. Yeah. Nicholas Meyer, of course, also directed this. And by the way, let me just mention real quick, in case you don't know, that originally Wrath of Khan was supposed to be called The Undiscovered Country. That's what Nicholas Meyer wanted to call it, and they didn't like it at the time, but then he got this script, and they liked it for this, and that's a Shakespeare reference, so it works. But anyway, so I think it's kind of sad that it wasn't Savik. Not that I necessarily wanted Savik to turn out to be a bad guy, but it would have been a much bigger deal.
It would have been.
It also would have tied this movie into the others in a way that it doesn't. It kind of would
have made sense in a way, as opposed to what they did with Valeris, where nobody even bought it. Or at least, I'm hoping I'm not alone in that I don't buy it.
I doubt you are, and the actress wasn't very good.
No, it seemed like she didn't understand the material.
I hate to say this, but I mean, she's got some lines that I feel like she just doesn't even know what she's saying. There's some strange line delivery. Yeah. And especially in the very first scene, she's got this line that she totally botches, that she says it in a way that it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. She says something about thrusters only while in space dock. Yeah. And the way she delivers the line, it sounds like the only time you're ever supposed to use thrusters is when you're in space dock.
Yeah. There's a comma there, or a pause, or should be.
Where the way the line should have delivered was
thrusters only. While in space.
Yeah. So anyway, it was not to nitpick a single line, but that was our first introduction to
what
it.
I think is
and Spock saw, "You're supposed to replace me."
No, but what I think is that when they found out, oh wait, it can't be Saavik, we have to create this new character. Well, we're just gonna throw her in there and not really do too much to convince the audience. I mean, it just feels very lazy.
I'm not sure what they should have done, but I know it wasn't that. You know what I mean?
Well,
because
they could
the
have
thing
made
about
an
it is,
attempt, I'm sure.
What would have been great, which we couldn't have had, this is nobody's fault, would have been, of course, for it to have been a character we knew. I don't know how that could have happened. They did it with Cartwright.
But, yeah,
you know what I mean? Because Cartwright had been in a couple previous films, and he wasn't real developed, so it wasn't really that big of a deal that he was... Frankly, I would assume that a lot of casual viewers wouldn't have even remembered that Cartwright had been...
in a previous
film.
Yeah.
Because he was at the beginning of 4. I said a couple. I think maybe 4 was the only one he was in. He's at the beginning of 4. He didn't do anything. He's just the admiral on the planet down on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I think they could have fixed it just by throwing a couple scenes in there that were Valeris-centered, where she did something.
It wouldn't have been a bad opportunity to do something, and not to rewrite the movie. I'd hate to do that, but I mean, these movies have a tendency to go back to Vulcan. That wouldn't have been a bad idea.
No.
You
We
know,
could
see
start
her
on
in her
Vulcan,
element. Go back to Vulcan. Do something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
6 months earlier, even before she became involved in this plot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, she wasn't on screen enough, and then it was too obvious.
We saw her quote regulations to the captain, and then all of a sudden she's evil.
Now let's use this as a springboard to get into what's really good about the film, and because I want to say that the best scene for Spock to me is with Valeris, and that's when he smacks the phaser away from her when she finally gets caught.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the movie in a while, let me just give quick background, because we're kind of talking all over the place, and maybe it's been a while since you've seen it. But Valeris heads up the operation to try to figure out who is responsible for going over to the Klingon ship and killing Gorkon, and then how exactly fortune torpedoes were shot at the Klingon ship, regardless of the fact that Scotty's banks say that
they hadn't
fired anything, but then the inventory says that 2 were gone,
the
and then
inventory even said that they were all there. They did a physical count.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, and then they did a physical count. Yeah, right. And so anyway, and then we find out, of course, that she got a couple of guys to do this, and she gets caught because she tries to go into the morgue and destroy the bodies. I think is what happens, and then Spock pops up.
Well, what they do is they have it sound over the intercom as though they discovered them and they were able to revive them because she had killed them.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They wanted the ship's...
I was watching this film very closely. No, I never really caught that.
Yeah, they wanted to get the person from the ship to come take... what was it? Like an account from them.
I'm distracted at that point in the movie and not really thinking so much about this particular plot because we just got off of Repente. You know what I mean? So it's hard to get back into this, there's this mystery plot going on.
Yeah. So she goes into sickbay thinking that they're there and she can dispose of them, kill them right.
I feel dumb about that. But this is the first time I've seen this in quite a few years.
But she gets caught red-handed.
Anyway, so she gets caught, and then Spock says you have to fire. I just love that scene. He's so intense there.
Yeah.
It is the angriest I've ever seen Spock.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it have been way better if it had been Saavik? So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There you go. There.
Exactly.
Kirk and Spock have a scene at the beginning, which is one of their best scenes on screen together ever, in my opinion. And it's very much toward the beginning, and I like it because it works on so many different layers, on so many different levels. Where Spock says to Kirk, do you think that it's possible that we've gotten so old that we've outlived our usefulness? And that's not just, and I've heard Leonard Nimoy say in interviews this also, but you can tell just watching it. That's not just Spock talking to Kirk. That's Nimoy talking to Shatner.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene. It's a wonderful scene. And that props it way up for me because you still have this theme that's been, and remember it's Meyer. You still have this theme that's been working since 2, of we're nearing retirement, we've gotten older, you know, or should we still be gallivanting around the universe?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah. So another part of the movie though that did not work for me very well.
Okay.
Repente.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I love the concept of a Klingon prison planet, ice planet, whatever. But they get down there, the characters are down there, and it's boring. Would you think that a Klingon prison planet would be boring?
Well, I mean, what did you want? Paint sticks? I mean,
well, I don't know. Maybe it was just slow pace. But all that happened was Kirk was.
It's not that slow. There's not a lot going on the plane. Really.
That's the problem.
But how's it boring? We don't spend any time there.
Yes, well, more than I want to spend. Kirk
Really?
gets accosted twice by giant aliens, and then he sneaks away with that Mardia person. And
That's all pretty classic TOS stuff. I mean.
But it's not fun. Classic TOS would have at least made it fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just kind of expected.
Never bothered me.
It was expected.
Yeah.
If you go to a prison in an episode of anything, not just Star Trek, what are you going to say?
What did you want?
I don't know. I wanted some creativity is what I wanted. And maybe a couple more Klingons.
It's a prison planet.
There are no Klingon guards anywhere.
There's some great sets on that planet. There's some there's
like
some
I say, the sets.
There's some fantastic aliens and prosthetics. I don't know. I mean, it looks really good. The creativity comes from there. I mean, I don't know what you wanted the story to do there, other than get Kirk off the surface in a more interesting fashion.
That's what I wanted.
Okay, all right. Well, that's fair enough. No, that's a fair criticism.
Because every time
it's not that big of a deal.
Every time we visit the planet, I'm bored.
I mean, if you wanted to get really nitpicky, I could say things like it doesn't make a great deal of sense that Spock's able to put some kind of magical plot device on Kirk's back that the Klingons don't find that signals them where they are and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Not that big of a deal to me.
Yeah. But you would have bought.
I do think it's odd that there's not a lot of Klingons on the planet, and I do think that Mardia strikingly does not fit in a Star Trek movie.
No.
She feels like a Star Wars alien to me. She really doesn't feel like a Star Trek character.
And she's such a contrivance.
And I'm distracted by her just because she sounds just like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But other than that, which is odd because the actress is from Africa. I don't know why they sound so close.
I don't know why you'd think that.
I don't know. She sounds kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
It's got a decent mystery plot.
Yes.
Could have been maybe a little bit more complex. Maybe, I don't know. But I like Spock in this movie. And I like Spock heading up the operation, trying to figure out who fired and all that. It's really,
I like
it's
just
really
how
good.
many twists there were in that.
Yeah,
because you're looking for the boots, and that doesn't lead you to them. You're looking for the uniform, and that leads you to the guys, but they're dead. And I mean, you just keep finding another string that's
you think
unraveled.
you found the right guy for the boots, but then his feet don't fit in them because they're webbed and all that.
See, that's creativity.
Yeah, it is.
They put all their thought into that one.
And like always, you got to make Chekhov look really stupid somewhere in a movie, right? Where he's like, if the boot fit, no, Chekhov. Sorry, Buster. Why don't you look down at the...
Now, one thing that really did work about this movie was Sulu. Sulu finally getting a captainship.
Yeah, and all I would have liked would have been a little more screen time on the Excelsior.
Yeah, that was great. Every time he was on screen, it was cool.
Yeah, even though it's honestly, what I would have done with it, maybe again, I don't want to rewrite the movie. I don't think it would have been a bad idea to have been almost half and half, or maybe like 2/3 and a quarter. You know what I mean? Where like you have a lot of Sulu because and we get to know maybe a little bit of his crew also. You know what I mean? Like it would have been cool to have seen that dynamic.
You'd have to have added another subplot, I think, because nothing was really going on his ship.
Well, no. All you would have had to have done would have been to have had it be the Excelsior that rescues Kirk instead of the Enterprise.
Sure.
I don't know why you wouldn't have done it that way.
I don't know.
That would have made sense to me. But I think that it's a little. I raised my eyebrow a little bit at the end when we get this huge money shot on Sulu's bridge of all of his crew. We don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
Like, it's this really big deal. I'm Sulu with my crew, and I'm like, well, I know that's Rand, only because I know what the actress looks like. She gets no lines, and she's never mentioned, so if you don't know Star Trek, you wouldn't even know who that was, much less that it was his first officer. You know, and things like that. So whatever. I do think it's really silly that, as big as the Excelsior is, that he's got these tiny, tiny quarters.
Yeah, compared to Spock's. I mean, you look at Spock, and he has, like, our entire apartment as his bedroom. And then you go to, Sulu, and
he's got a closet.
His crewman opens a door, and it's like his feet are sticking out into the corridor.
Yeah, and he doesn't even call him first. He just opens his door, and the light from the corridor wakes him up. And I know I'm nitpicking, but this is hilarious. They go back to, he's got this huge bright light shining on him, like heaven is raining down. And then you turn the camera, and you go, or you go to another shot, and you see the crewman standing outside, and there's like no light behind him.
It's like, kind of dark movie scene.
Yeah, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's amusing. Boy, I feel like there's something huge we're probably missing that we should be talking about. Chang's awesome. You can't. Well, Christopher Plummer's always good, and you can't not like a Klingon who's got a piece of metal bolted to his face.
True.
That's awesome. And yes, it's irritating that he quotes Shakespeare so much. Although I would have said cut it in half and it would have been fine.
Probably. They just overdid it.
But he's great. The courtroom scene is fantastic.
Yes.
And he's really good in that. I'm not sure.
Except for the translator thing. Don't wait for the translators to... I mean, really?
Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now. It's like, no, Kirk has to know what you said first before he can answer. Anyway, whatever. But that's one of the best scenes in a Star Trek movie. I mean, that's one of the best sets in a Star Trek film.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
A really amazing set. I think Herman Zimmerman worked on this like he has everything else, and he was really proud of that set. It's really good stuff. I love the really tall seats. You got the Klingons looming over them. That's really cool. We could have spent more time there, and I would have been okay with it. I mean, it was really neat. And I mean, like, the judge with his scary gavel, with the sparks flying out of it, with the ball and all that. I don't know. Visually, it's one of the better movies. Certainly, and again, it's got a lot of really good ideas in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they executed everything a little bit better than you do. But I will say you're right about Valeris. I'll say that the mystery on the ship is far more interesting than the overarching mystery because it becomes actually painfully obvious who's involved.
Yes.
Gee, the Romulan was involved? What?
Yeah, I never would have guessed that one.
And what is he doing on the Federation Security Council?
Yeah, and what's he doing in the room when the Federation guys are saying, hey, we're going to go rescue
We're making this
Kirk.
huge deal out of the fact that our enemies are finally becoming our allies, and apparently the Romulans have already done this.
Yeah.
What?
Apparently they've moved in.
Then when we get to TNG, we'll act like we haven't seen the Romulans in a bazillion years.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's
really
because
silly.
that guy screwed it up.
Yeah, right. And then Admiral Cartwright's involved. Gee, I'm so surprised with that giant speech he had about at the beginning about how let's put them in their place and then we'll be in a far better position to dictate terms.
Yeah.
Oh, you're involved? And then Colonel West, who's all super hokey with his... By the way, real quick before we're done, can we talk about the technology in this movie?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah. So, you have computers. You have a massive starship that goes from place to place, and yet you must crack open textbooks to understand Klingon. They don't have Klingon programmed into the computer?
Sitting right in front of the monitors.
In front of the monitors, yeah.
They've got these big volumes, and that's supposed to be funny, but I'm taken out because
it makes no sense.
Of where we are and when we are. Yeah, it's silly, and I don't feel like that's a nitpick. It's just silly.
Yeah.
And then, but my favorite. Okay, that's bad, but better is when we're on the Klingon ship. We're on Gorgon ship, Kronos 1, and and they're talking to somebody over a hologram. It's not even a view screen, it's a hologram, which is better technology than we usually even see in Star Trek. And then right after the hologram disappears, somebody puts a huge map right over onto the table.
Yeah.
So your holograms can't do maps? What?
Yeah. Well, they haven't built stellar cartography aboard the Klingon ships.
So, I don't know, there's example after example about that. Also, real quick, I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about the Klingons and we went to a different place, but like I said, I'm not bothered by a lot of the differences with the Klingons. It's a standalone movie. I can deal with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's not going to
by
ruin.
themselves would have been small.
It's not going to ruin the movie. The one thing that is a problem that I don't think is a nitpick is the fact that women can serve. That a female becomes the Chancellor, because that's such a big deal in Klingon lore, in lore that we've already had before this point, and I don't feel like that would have changed either between 80 and 100 years.
And it's weird to me that the Chancellorship passes down from father to daughter.
Yeah, in the
family.
family.
Really? In the family? It's not a monarchy.
No.
I mean...
The Council is mentioned nowhere in this movie.
No. And Galron
and
Duras had to vie for the nomination.
That's right.
In TNG.
That's right, and a huge deal was made out of the fact that women can't serve on the council because the Duras sisters were trying to get their nephew, Duras' son.
Toral, yeah.
So, and even if it's changed to where now there's a council and there didn't used to be, which I don't even buy that, but I mean, even if that were the case, I still don't see it being a monarchy. No. And that's what it feels like. Yeah. So that's silly. The other thing is, as much as I love David Warner, Gorkon is great. Gorkon is really fun, but he's too passive for a Klingon. Don't you think?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the Chancellor of the Klingon Empire. He doesn't feel like a Klingon in a lot of ways. And then when we go on the ship, nobody defends themselves. Yeah. Yeah, okay, it's zero gravity, but it seems like
you can still pull out a disruptor and shoot somebody because your muscles still work.
And some of them have disruptors on them. It's weird that some of them don't. But then, there's one that gets... Justin mentioned this when we were watching it, where somebody, one of the two crewmen fires, and he loses his gun. I mean, he had plenty of time to pull that out. I don't know. So anyway, again, in another movie I wouldn't complain about it, but they're Klingons. We need to see Klingons being Klingons.
And it's a pattern throughout the whole movie that things like this are happening.
Right. Yeah, it's an isolated incident.
It's just a little bit lazy, and
I can see what you're talking about.
Such a great concept to begin with.
Yeah, I can see what you... All right. Well, what would you rate it?
I would rate it a solid 2.5.
Well, that's higher than I would have expected.
Mostly because of concept, and mostly because of visuals. And it is, if I had to list the movies in order, the order in which I, liked them from best to worst, it's in the upper 5. But part of that's because there are a lot of really bad movies. So
I'm on the fence, somewhere between a 2.5 and a 3. If I have to compare it to the rest of the Trek movies, because competition is kind of limited. Because there's more bad Trek movies than there are good Trek movies, I think, or at least mediocre ones. I'm gonna go for a 3 if we're going mostly just compared to the rest of the movies. I still think it's a 3.
Yeah.
I really do. If for nothing else, that I love what Kirk and Spock are doing.
Yeah, they really have some good chemistry in this one.
And I appreciate the fact that Meyer is able to bring back some of the themes that we haven't really touched on since 2. I wish it had gone farther, I really do. Yeah. But his mark is still very much there.
Yes.
And the way the thing is shot, and I mean the cinematography and everything, like Meyer's back. Like, we're back into Star Trek 2-ville.
Yes.
With this movie, especially when we get to the big battle sequences at the end, which is really good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess I'm going to go for a 3. I guess so.
Sure, fair enough.
Well, anyway, what do you think about Star Trek 6? Leave us a comment, let us know. Also, if there's something you'd like us to talk about in a future video, leave that in the comments as well. And thanks a lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And we'll see you next time.
The best is yet to come.